Before your next cruise, there are a few things you need to know that most passengers only learn after something goes wrong. Small choices can affect your comfort, privacy, money, even your whole experience on board. These 12 secrets will help you cruise smarter, avoid regret, and enjoy the trip far more. Secret number 1. Where you sleep matters. Most first-time cruisers spend hours comparing deck numbers. They look at deck 4 versus deck 10, wonder about sea views, think about how close they are to the waterline. Then they book the cheapest option and move on. That's not entirely wrong, but it skips a question that matters more. Where on the ship is the cabin? Not just how high up. Position shapes the experience in ways that do not show up in the listings. Cabins located directly under a pool deck deal with furniture scraping, footsteps, and drain noise, sometimes from 6 in the morning. Cabins above a theater or kitchen can pick up sound through the floor at night. Cabins near service corridors or laundry rooms hear crew activity that never fully stops. None of that is obvious until you try to sleep. Motion is another factor. Forward and aft cabins tend to feel more movement in any given sea state, while midship positions sit closer to the ship's pivot point. Cabins on lower decks generally move less than those on upper ones. For anyone who gets seasick, that placement can change the whole week. The point is not to overthink it. The point is to spend 5 extra minutes before booking, look up the deck plan, and check what is above and below your room. The ship itself is part of the vacation, but where you sleep should not be left to chance. Secret number 2. The aft is not always the upgrade it looks like. The back of the ship looks spectacular in photos. That wide wake view, the balcony that seems to float above the ocean, the sense of having something that most passengers walk past without realizing they could have. It's one of the most searched cabin types for a reason. But the aft cabin experience involves more than the view. Vibration is real. Engines and propulsion systems sit toward the rear on most ships, and that mechanical presence can be felt through the floor and walls, particularly at sea or when the ship is maneuvering. Now, some passengers don't notice, but others find it impossible to ignore. That depends entirely on the person and the ship. Distance is the other reality. On large ships, the aft can be a significant walk from the main elevators, the theater, the guest services desk, and the gangway. Now that's fine when you're relaxed. On a port morning when the whole ship is trying to get off at once, or on a day when something goes wrong and you need to get somewhere fast, it's less so. Port-heavy itineraries especially reward cabins that are easier to reach. The aft is not a bad choice. For a sea-heavy sailing with a slower pace, that private feel and those views have real value. The question is whether the romance of the back of the ship fits the reality of how you will actually use the ship. Secret number 3. Boarding day punishes unprepared carry-ons. A bad carry-on can ruin your cruise before your cabin is even ready. Most passengers treat embarkation like the start of the vacation. But in terms of what you need on your person, it's more like a long travel day that happens to end on a ship. Checked luggage goes through a separate process on embarkation day. It's scanned, sorted, and delivered to your cabin, but that delivery can take hours. Bags often do not arrive until mid-afternoon or early evening. Until then, the only things you have are the things you carried on. That means any medication you need during the day stays in your carry-on. So does a swimsuit if you want to use the pool while you wait. Sunscreen matters, especially if you're sailing somewhere warm and the first 2 hours are spent on an open deck. A change of clothes helps if you travel through a hot terminal. Travel documents need to be accessible, not buried in a checked bag that has gone ahead of you. Embarkation sets a tone. Passengers who are comfortable and prepared in those first 2 hours tend to relax into their trip faster. Passengers who spend the afternoon waiting for their bag to arrive tend to start on the back foot. And that one small packing decision makes that difference. Secret number 4. Your cabin door says more than you intend. That cute cabin door decoration can tell strangers more about you than you realize. On a large sailing, Thousands of people walk those corridors over the course of a week. Most of them have no interest in you, but there's no filter on who reads what you put on your door, and most passengers put more information there than they would display anywhere else they sleep. Door decorations seem harmless when you're planning them at home, especially for birthdays, reunions, or family trips. But a personalized wreath, a name banner, a sign that reads something like "Celebrating 30 years" or "Family of 5" communicates identity, group size, and reason for travel to anyone passing by. That's more than a hotel room door would ever carry. And there are subtler signals as well. Many bags, notices, or promotional items sit outside a decorated door for a long time, untouched. It becomes visible that the room is empty. That's the kind of information that requires no effort to read. None of this requires anxiety. The point is proportion. A small magnet to find your door quickly is a practical tool. A large personalized display that announces who you are and why you're celebrating is a different thing. Simple works. It works better than elaborate, and it shares less than most people consider when they're in the mood to decorate. Secret number 5. The medical center bill can ruin the trip. Getting sick on a cruise ship is not the worst part. Getting the bill is. The ship's medical center is not a covered clinic. It operates as a private medical facility and charges accordingly. A basic consultation can easily run in the hundreds of dollars depending on what line and what is involved. Specialist referrals, diagnostic tests, or an overnight stay push that figure considerably higher. Medication dispensed on board often costs far more than the same drug would at a pharmacy on land. Most passengers don't know this because it never comes up at booking. The medical center is mentioned in the safety briefing, not the pricing guide. The first time many travelers learn what a shipboard doctor visit costs is when the charge appears on their onboard account, or worse, when a card is presented at checkout on the last night. Travel insurance changes this calculation entirely. A comprehensive policy with medical coverage, including emergency evacuation if the ship needs to transfer a patient to a shoreside hospital, typically costs a fraction of what a single serious incident would cost uninsured. The evacuation clause matters the most. Helicopter transfers and medical airlifts from remote sailing locations can reach tens of thousands of dollars. The secret is not that illness happens on ships. It's the cost structure at sea is completely different from what most people assume, and the time to address it is before departure, not from a bunk in the medical center. Secret number 6. Your ideal dinner table was booked weeks ago. The table you want on your last night of your cruise was already taken before you sailed. Most ships in the modern fleet carry specialty restaurants alongside the main included dining options. Those venues have fixed capacity, limited nightly covers, and reservations that open weeks or months before the ship departs. Passengers who know this book their preferred nights from home, right after their final payment clears. The best time slots on the most popular nights fill with those passengers first. First-time cruisers typically discover the specialty dining options on boarding day. They find a menu they like, ask at the host stand for a table on Saturday night, and learn that Saturday is committed until late in the evening. What remains is a 5:30 slot on port day, which is not quite the evening they had in mind. Some lines allow pre-booking discounts on top of the earlier access, so the passengers who plan ahead pay less and eat better. The fix is simple and costs nothing to attempt. Log into your cruise line's online account before departure. Check what specialty venues the ship carries. Read the pricing. Decide which nights are worth it to you, and book the ones you want from home. The booking window is open. Most passengers just don't know to look for it. This is one of the more avoidable disappointments in cruising, because the solution does not require money or insider knowledge. It requires only that you look at the booking portal before you arrive. If this is useful so far, hit subscribe and keep watching. There's more to cover, and the next few points are the ones most passengers wish they had heard first. Secret 7. The fare is only a starting point. A cruise fare is not a total. It's a starting point. Most travelers understand this in theory before they book, and most of them still underestimate the gap between the number on the booking page and the number on the final bill. Gratuities are the most common surprise. On major cruise lines, daily service charges can run from $15 to $20 or more per person per day, which adds up quickly on a 7-night sailing. Wi-Fi, specialty dining, drink packages, excursions, spa treatments, photos, casino play, and onboard shopping all sit on top of that. None of them are hidden exactly, but none of them feel like spending because the bill is not presented until the last night or charged to a card that does not get reviewed until you're home. And that last point matters more than the specific numbers. Ships create an environment where spending feels abstract. There's no physical exchange of money. There's a key card or an account number. The amounts are small individually. The total is not. The passengers who manage this well are not the ones who spend nothing. They're the ones who decide in advance what the trip was worth to them. They chose which add-ons actually improved their vacation and which ones were just available. Pre-booking some items before sailing sometimes costs less. More importantly, it forces the decision to happen on land, where the numbers feel real. Secret number 8. Port days are easy to overspend and overdo. There's a pressure that arrives with every port call. The ship docks, the clock starts, and somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice says that you should be doing more, seeing more, spending more, because the ship leaves at 5 o'clock, and this may be the only time you're ever here. That pressure sells a lot of shore excursions. Some of them are excellent. Organized tours offer access to sites that are difficult to reach independently, with transportation handled and timing guaranteed. On certain ports, they're genuinely the best use of the day. On others, they are not. Some ports reward nothing more than walking out of the terminal and spending a few hours on a beach, in a market, or at a table with a local lunch. The experience costs almost nothing and tends to produce more vivid memories than a packed half-day tour that moved everyone through 6 sites in 4 hours. Choose 1 or 2 port days where something specific interests you enough to pay for it and plan around it. On the others, consider what the place actually looks like without an itinerary. The best cruise memories are often the ones that were not arranged in advance. Secret number 9. One setting at boarding saves a surprising bill. Maritime roaming is one of the more expensive ways to accidentally spend money on a cruise. The ship travels through international waters. The cellular network at sea is not your home carrier. When your phone connects to the ship's maritime network, or when it briefly picks up a signal from a foreign tower in port, the rate can be dramatically higher than standard international roaming. The bill often does not appear until you're home. The simple fix is airplane mode. Turn it on before the ship leaves the dock and keep it on for the duration of the sailing. Wi-Fi calling through the ship's internet, if you purchased a plan, still works in airplane mode. Messages can go out through apps when you're on Wi-Fi. Everything that actually requires cellular data can wait for a port stop where local Wi-Fi is available. And background processes are worth a specific mention. Even when you're not actively using your phone, certain apps sync automatically. Software updates download without asking. Location services check in. Email refreshes. Each of those processes, running quietly while you're by the pool, can trigger a roaming charge. It's a strange way to lose money because nothing dramatic happens. You didn't make a long international call. You just left a setting unchanged. One adjustment at boarding before the ship moves takes about 3 seconds and costs nothing. Secret number 10. The ship leaves on time whether you're on it or not. Every year, passengers stand on a dock and watch their ship sail away without them. It happens often enough that every major cruise line has dealt with it, and every year there are travelers left scrambling in a foreign port with no clear way forward. Every port call comes with an all-aboard time, and that time carries no grace period for independent travelers. When the gangway comes up, it comes up. The ship is on a schedule that involves tides, berth allocations, the next port's arrival window, and a fuel calculation that does not pause for latecomers. Now, passengers on cruise line excursions are in a different position. If the ship's own organized tour is delayed, the ship typically waits because the ship created the problem. Passengers on independent arrangements carry no such protection. One traffic jam on the road back to port, one tender that ran behind schedule, one driver who misjudged the return time, and the full liability shifts to the traveler. The cost of missing the ship is not just an inconvenient taxi ride to the next port. It can include flights, overnight accommodation, a visa for an unplanned country stop, and travel agent fees to sort it all out in real time from a foreign dock. Some of that is recoverable through travel insurance, but none of it is the cruise line's problem. The fix is a buffer. Independent tours should be timed to return at least 90 minutes before all aboard. If the itinerary does not allow for that margin, the ship's own excursion may be worth the premium. Secret number 11. A passport card is not always enough at sea. Closed-loop cruises, those that depart and return to the same American port, can technically be completed by U.S. citizens using only a birth certificate and a government-issued photo ID. The cruise line will accept the boarding. Customs will accept the return. On an uninterrupted round trip with no emergencies, it works fine. The problem is the emergencies. If a passenger needs to be medically evaluated from the ship and flown home from a foreign country, a birth certificate and state ID do not satisfy airline and boarding requirements in the way a passport does. The traveler is stuck. Now, getting an emergency passport issued abroad, under time pressure, from a U.S. consulate that may be hours away, is a solvable problem, but it is a serious and expensive one. And there's also the scenario of a missed ship you covered in an earlier point. If you're left in a foreign port and need to fly to meet the ship at the next stop, or simply fly home, you need a passport. That combination, missed port plus no passport, is exactly the kind of compounding situation that turns a bad day into a genuinely serious one. And there's a second level to this that even passport holders sometimes miss. Some itineraries transit waters or make brief technical stops in ways that create unexpected entry requirements. Certain Caribbean routes touch ports where the ship does not formally dock, but passengers who went ashore independently may be subject to entry rules that do not apply to cruise manifest passengers. Reading the fine print on international entry requirements for every port, not just the headline destinations, is worth the 15 minutes. Bring the passport. The alternative documents are a minimum standard designed for the best case scenario. Vacations are not always best case scenarios. Secret number 12. The trip is won before sail away. Everything covered in this video points to the same idea. The best cruise experiences are built before anyone steps on board. Cabin placement is a research decision made at booking. The carry-on is a packing decision made the night before. The spending plan is a conversation to have before the ship leaves the dock. Airplane mode is a setting change in the terminal. Specialty dining is a reservation made 3 weeks in advance from a laptop at home. The medical question is answered by a travel insurance policy. The passport question is answered by bringing the right document before anyone asks for it. Most cruise problems are not mysterious. They are predictable. The traveler who spent 3 times the fare in onboard charges because the credit card never felt real at sea. The couple who ended up exhausted by day 5 because they had said yes to everything. The passengers who stood on a dock and watched the ship sail because the tour ran 45 minutes long. None of those outcomes required bad luck. What they required was a bit of preparation that nobody quite got to. Not because the information was unavailable, but because boarding day felt like the beginning, and it was actually already the middle. The real upgrade on any cruise is not the suite, the drink package, or the private shore excursion. It's the calm that comes from having made the important decisions already. The passengers who look the most relaxed on a ship are almost always the ones who did their homework before they arrived. The smartest cruise passengers are not the ones spending the most. They're the ones who understand the small things before they step on board. Keep these secrets in mind. Travel with more confidence, and the whole experience feels better. Now give a like, subscribe, and click the next video on the screen. I'm sure you'll love it. Your voyage is just beginning.